Welcome back or welcome to Grateful and Full of Greatness. I'm your host, Mark Glicini. On this podcast, I sit down with guests who, in my opinion, live their lives with the pursuit of greatness in mind. This platform allows me to discuss and to explain strategies that go into reaching peak performance. This is episode number 11. My guest, Kyle Harrison, former Tewaaraton winner at Johns Hopkins for the best player in NCAA, and two-time McLaughlin Award winner for Best Offensive Midfielder during his time at Johns Hopkins, and a championship winner at every level, from high school, college, to professional lacrosse. Kyle remains one of the best players to ever play the sport. Heading into his 16th professional season, he's a veteran leader and a complete midfielder for the Redwoods Lacrosse Club in the Premier Lacrosse League. An opponent of mine on the field, yet someone I've looked up to for over a dozen years, Kyle Harrison embodies character, leadership, and commitment to causes greater than self. He is a devoted husband, father, board member for Charm City Youth Lacrosse, leader on the Premier Lacrosse League's philanthropic initiatives, PLL assists. And most recently, in 2019, Kyle received the Brendan Looney Leadership Award. From Team USA to the U.S. Lacrosse Board of Directors, Kyle's accolades seem endless. It's been a privilege to get to know him and now call him my friend. So without any further ado, Kyle, thanks for coming on.
Wow, that was the real deal. I appreciate that, man. That might be the best intro I've ever heard. I appreciate that.
I only think I got a quarter of the pie, but I appreciate you taking the time.
Of course, man. That meant the world. Appreciate that.
First and foremost, I appreciate you taking the time in your busy schedule, and I admire your empathy and leadership during these trying times. In the PLL's inaugural season, Paving the Way initiative and shirts were made. Can you talk a little bit about that? Elaborate on the diversity and inclusion mission that you lead.
Yeah. No, thanks for the question. I think, when building this league and when thinking through the Black lacrosse experience, we're just going to talk about that specifically, and then we'll get back into the whole thing. I think, paving the way, those shirts, Mark, was so important because representation, and I think white players don't necessarily have to think through this, but I didn't either, which I'll get to in a second, because my dad played. So like when you think about players in underserved communities, they need to see someone that looks like them, something aspirational, right? Like I want to be that person, and he looks like me, so I can do that. My dad played, so that thought never crossed my mind. It's the dude that I wanted to be lived, 10 feet to the left, and I wanted to be that guy. And so I think with those Paving the Way shirts, it was just like a tip of the cap to the people that came before me, and Miles and Trevor. There's like a whole generation, like past Bobby Horsey, past some of the all-time greats in the Black lacrosse community, that like really set the tone for the rest of us to even have an opportunity, right? So from Lloyd Carter to Miss Tina Sloan Green to Mr. Jim Brown, like there's been so many folks that have come before us. And I think for me, man, when I look back, and I know you're an introspective guy too, that's so empowering. Like knowing like somebody else walked in these shoes to give me the opportunity that I have, and now I'm going to walk in these shoes to make sure the next young boy or girl has the opportunity. So those Paving the Way shirts, man, it was cool, and it was it was something I was really proud of, Mark, because we put them in every guy's locker. And I made it very clear. I don't know if you remember. Like I tried to make it abundantly clear via email. You do not have to wear. Like this is not league mandated. You want to wear it? Great. You don't. I'm not mad at you, and it doesn't make you any less of a person or whatever. And everybody wore it. And it was really cool and a big step for us. And I know it might seem small to people, but that was a big step. And then when it comes to like the holistic diversity and inclusion and PLL assist approach, man, it really comes down to trying to make this game the most inclusive and welcoming environment we possibly can, right? And so that's going to be from a race perspective, from a socioeconomic perspective, from you think about just all the different partners, supporting veterans, fighting cancer, diversity and inclusion and growth. Like we're trying to cover everyone, right? Like I think we're just trying to make everyone understand that I think this generation currently, like yourself included, like we've got a bunch of really great men and women that like want this game to feel better. And I think we're all trying to just drive it that direction. So with PLL Assist, man, we're just trying to be out in front. Like it's one thing to tweet stuff on social media. It's another thing to do action. And so like, we're just trying to do as much as we can and show that we're committed to it.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing that. That was awesome.
Yeah.
One of the lines that I've added to the sports psychology field is emulate until you can innovate. And I think that has everything to do with copying somebody that's great. But I think a lot has to do with that authenticity that you talked about right early on in your response is you have to be able to see yourself in those shoes, right? And where that takes me is my mentor always says when I'm speaking in front of teams and groups, there's no great story without a great problem. And people correlate with you and you hit common ground when you start talking about your loss. It's the craziest thing about human beings. Like 100%. They can't relate to that award that you won, but they can relate to that loss, whether it was physical, emotional. So that's where the real power of storytelling comes. And
100%.
Right now we're in a really trying time, and I really appreciate your vulnerability and your voice during this time. But right now, a setback is a setup for a comeback, and you got to believe that in every way possible. So let's do a deeper dive into you and your story. Because you're so much more than a phenomenal lacrosse player, as we've touched on already. Where are you from originally, and who are some of your earliest influences?
Baltimore, Maryland. That's where I'm from. In terms of my influences, man, like the lacrosse thing for me has been so interesting because it just was never the plan. It was the sport I played the least. And in terms of my skill level, like it was the one that I was the worst at, right? It was always basketball, soccer, lacrosse. And so, the folks I looked up to were the Michael Jordans of the world, the Kobe Joneses from soccer back in the day. I know you're too young to even remember that. But there were just, there was the folks I wanted to be weren't lacrosse players. And then as I got older, right, in lacrosse, I started understanding my family history, my dad playing, starting that team at Morgan. Like I started growing into like a real deal athlete, like midway through high school. Then all of a sudden, I started watching lacrosse, and like the first guy, and I've like put it on social media a million times, the guy I saw and was like, oh my gosh, I got to do that. It was AJ Hogan at Hopkins. And so AJ was a midfielder, this just quiet dude who just, when for some reason the whistle blew, he turned into a damn monster. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's the guy I have to be. And then I started paying attention to lacrosse and like falling in love with it. And then all of a sudden I became, just like all of us, I became obsessed, right? It was like I was watching Mikey Powell, watching Jay Jalbert, watching Chris Witelli, watching Adam Doniger, like watching all these guys that were at the level I wanted to be and just like taking little things from all of them. And that's honestly, I still do that now, man. I'll still watch like a PLL game and see, Tom do something or, anybody, I see Channy, how he shoots and hide his stick. Like I'm watching all these dudes. I'm like, all right, I got to grab that. And like, I should have been doing that a couple years ago. Like, and that's just what you do, And so like, that's where my obsession with lacrosse began. You know what I love about it? And I'm sure you're no different, dude. What I love about this sport is that I feel like, obviously, when you get to our level, like people are elite athletes. That's the reality. Everybody that plays in the PLL is a very, very athletic dude. But what I love about it is like, you don't necessarily have to be the best athlete on the field if you can have an IQ and understand the game and understand angles and be able to see what's going to happen before it happens. Like that's what as I've gotten older, that's what I've like started to fall in love with. I'm just like, oh, I spent all these damn years running in circles, like trying to get to the right alley to shoot the ball. When in actuality, all I had to do was like watch the flow of the game and then put myself in the right spot, And so that's what I love about the sport now.
No, I love that.
An old man.
It is such a good answer in terms of something that's not really focused on it. And when you look at strength and conditioning, one of the metrics that is the hardest to improve is reaction time, right? There's a lot of science behind the fact that you can't even improve it. But the things that you're talking about, that getting yourself in the right spot and having those anticipatory skill development type of cues, those are the things that can continue even at your ripe old age in the game, can still have that improvement
100%.
to you. For any younger athlete listening to this, because one of the things that I love so much that you talked about is that your growth was undeterred as you were growing up, and it wasn't even lacrosse for you, it was multiple sports. Just touch on it real quickly, what you took from soccer or basketball or from these other sports before lacrosse became your obsession.
Yeah, no, for sure. So hoop, like I mean, if you watch me dodge, I play lacrosse like I played basketball. It's all like very twitchy stuff.
Mm.
And almost to a fault at times, like, right? Like I'll split and come back to you just because I'm so used to like shaking and doing the nonsense. And so with soccer, it was just conditioning. Like I was a center midfielder, I just ran all day long. I think the one other thing that we took from soccer, I was lucky, and I think a big part of my success in lacrosse is because I got to, you'd actually probably love this guy. So my best friend in the world is a guy named Benson Irwin. He was a D midi at Hopkins with me, and we went from second grade through Hopkins together.
Wow.
And so like he's a D midi, I'm an O midi, and so we just spent like literally 15 years just running into each other, and just like strength on strength. And so we both played soccer, and I think we were so physical in soccer. You know how that is, like especially back then, people are diving all over the place, and I like learned how to like shoulder someone and use my body. And I think I wish I would have been more cognizant of it earlier in my pro career, because it's just like happened the past 5 years of learning like, okay, I don't have to like shake you until you fall down. Let me just get a step, get into your shoulder, and then step away and shoot the ball. And I think like a lot of those body concepts I had early on, I just was too stubborn to try and use them because I wanted to dance so badly.
What's the game where Benson Irwin has a strip in the last 30 seconds, it goes the other way? I love that clip. What is that?
Yeah, he's a monster, man. It was Hopkins Duke. We were number 1, they were number 2. Under the lights, Homewood Field, Friday night, packed house. They're up by 1. And you know, their first team All-American has the ball behind the goal, and he but like, I mean, look, like this is like a movie. Like their first team All-American has the ball. We come out of a timeout, Mark, and instead of putting our pole on the ball, we say, Benson, go guard the ball.
Ludicrous.
So you send your short stick down there, he strips them, and then we go the other way, score, we go to overtime. But Benson, dude, the other clip of his, and I'll be short here, but the other clip of his that's hysterical is that we won the Final Four my senior year to put us in the national championship game. That week, I know, but like very few people know this story. I've only like revealed it recently on a couple podcasts. That Monday, I go to I hardly practice. I'm sure just like your senior year, you're just banged up. So I hardly practiced that year. And Coach Petro had us at Raven Stadium every practice because he was like, you all need to get used to playing in an NFL stadium. Oh. So that's where we're going to be on Memorial Day. So we're at Raven Stadium. I'm just minding my business, riding the bike. they're going through a clearing drill. He's like, yo, Harry, I need you. I was like, oh, okay. So grab my helmet, throw it on. I go jog out, catch the first pass, go to split, collapse. My back just goes out. And so he's screaming, Tyranny's screaming, you mother, just going crazy. And I can't, I'm trying to get up and I can't get up. And so the trainer comes on, they throw me in a car, we go to the doctor, and I had fractured something in my lower back. Oh, and so I was in bed that whole week. And so Benson, obviously we live together, comes to my room. He goes, all right, man, well, since you're out, I'll handle business this weekend. I'll make sure I score a big one for us. I'm like, oh, right. And so we have graduation Friday. We go up to Philly, and I have not run since Monday. I've been in bed. So they give me a shot on Saturday morning. They're like, you're going to go? I'm like, yeah, I'll go. If it goes on me, it goes. But I'm not going to not play in the Final Four game.
Yeah.
So we go, whatever, tie ball game. I don't know if you can picture this, but we're in overtime. Benson's on the field. Jesse Schwartzman makes a stop, outlets it to Paul. Paul goes up the field, and they come to him. He bangs it back to Benson. And Benson in my room, when he told me he was going to make a play, I'll score a big goal. I'll score a big one for us this weekend since you're out. He told me I'm going to do the eagle on the field afterwards. So this idiot, I'll send you the clip after this.
Please
he
do.
He scores it, right? So we went overtime. People going crazy, and he's walking away about to celebrate, and then you could see him remember, and he's like, and he does the whole thing. I'm on the side. I'm like, this is. It was out of control, man. It was out of control. I get chills every time I tell that story.
Well, I got chills, because you, if that doesn't happen, you're like, okay, that was just a absurd amount of cockiness. But in applied psychology, acting it till you become it is a real thing. And so what if it doesn't happen? But you got to believe it way before it happens. That's for sure.
Hell yeah, amen.
Stepping outside of lacrosse for a second, one of the things I love most about your social media page is your bio is short and sweet. It says husband and dad. What are some strategies or routines that you do to maintain enough energy to live that professional lacrosse life, but also have enough energy as a personal of two kids?
Yeah, man. So it's all, at least in my mind, it's all about prioritizing, right? My priority is my wife and my kids. And then everything else, while very cool and fulfilling, it's not my priority. And so for me, The opportunity to earn a living within the sport is great, and it's one I take great pride in and enjoy doing. But ultimately, that's my job, and those kids and my wife are like the core of my ability to do that, right? So like, I spend as much time with them as I possibly can. I think for me, the opportunity right now with COVID has been really cool because we have a 2-year-old who like is obviously in that developmental stage. Like he does something new literally every day.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a 5-year-old that like, she's like turning into a little person. She's like a personality and an attitude and doesn't listen and sometimes listen, like, so like if COVID hadn't happened, sponsors would have events, I would have been all over the place and I wouldn't have been able to witness this stuff. But like, we'll never get this time back, Mark. We would think about it. Like my last flight, my wife and I were joking a couple nights ago, my last flight was like January 26th or something like that. 20, like that's crazy for me. I'm usually like gone every 5 days, and like, so I've been just home. And not only have I been home, I mean like actually home. We haven't been anywhere because you couldn't go anywhere,
Absolutely.
So at the core of everything I do is my wife and kids. And while I love everything else, that's my priority.
Yeah, I was on an Instagram live with Brody Merrill. Him and I have become really close with the San Diego Seals, but he's been doing it both seasons for such a long time. And this quarantine is absolutely crazy for him because that's almost 20 years of him being on the road over 40 weekends out of the 52. And I said, what's like for you? And he had the exact same response, which just goes to show your guys' level of character. He said, I'm working on the relationships under my roof. And I think that's just such a good answer. And
such a good way of saying that.
You prioritize and you invest time in the thing that you love. But there's all these different strategies, prioritizing, have a proactive day rather than a reactive day that go into having optimal performance, like the template for it. But everybody's stories and interests are different. So what are some of your quirky hobbies or interests that you're into outside of family time and professional goals?
You know what, man? So there's not much time for any of that right now, which I'm actually okay with. I've like fallen into a good rhythm, Mark. And what we do is like our 2-year-old homeboy's got to figure it out at some point, but he just does not sleep. Like, so like 5 a.m., like the day is on. Like, and when I say on, like he doesn't wake up and like lay on you and watch Mickey. Like, no, he's ready to rock. So he and I get up around 5. I feed him breakfast. I have a coffee. And then we walk down to the dock and I call it fishing, but like, I mean, the fishing rod is in the water, but ain't nobody catching nothing. So we fish from like 5:45, 6 o'clock till 7:30, come back, mom's up, Brooke is typically up. So we'll hang out for a little bit and then I'll go work out, for a couple hours. That's done. And then my like work day starts of trying to do meetings, whatever I have to do. And then like I have blocked every night, 5:30 to 7:30. And that is dinner, reading time, tubby time, nighttime with the kids. Like I will not miss that. And it's like in my calendar. So like if you have access to my calendar, like you can't book something over that. Like 5:30 to 7:30 is what I'm going to be doing. So you just have to prioritize it, man. Right. And then, this life, like as long as I get my kid time in the morning with my wife, kids, the whole deal. And then I work and do whatever I got to do all day, work out, train, do this. And then like I have my time at the end of the day, like, the middle is a toss-up. You have no idea what's about to happen there. Like calls will go long, calls will get canceled, work product needs to be done. But like as long as I got that balance in the morning and at night, I'm typically in a good spot.
That's so awesome, man. I actually had the privilege. One of my mentors sent me an article from 1999, which is still fresh today, and the idea is so relevant. It's by Malcolm Gladwell on the physical genius, and what it has to do with is you wouldn't want to be spending your time anywhere else. So like Wayne Gretzky, when he was asked to go to the movies with his friends, he wanted to play hockey in the backyard. And if you're lucky enough to have a love that goes hand in hand with your interests and hobbies, I think that's where the true greatness comes about. Because if it's a chore for you to work out, if it's a chore for you to spend time with certain individuals over another, you're going to be dreading the day, and you're not going to.
Such a good point.
Yeah,
that's such a good point. Yeah, spot on.
So let's stay on the kids for a second. You speak all over the country. You run camps and clinics. What is a message that you're always coming back to, that you're always driving home to the younger generation or the younger kids?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I'm trying to think of like a short way to answer it. Look, I say it's twofold. One, like nobody's going to give anything to you. I know you came to my camp or you went to Paul's camp or Miles' camp. or Brody's camp, that doesn't inevitably mean you're going to be the best in the world, right? Like nobody's giving you anything. And I think more so than ever in this sport, in this space, like you have to work at it. Everybody goes to camp. Everybody watches film. Everybody lifts with the team. Like you have to do more than that to separate yourself. So come to my thing, please, by all means. Love to have you. I'm going to give you the blueprint and teach you the different drills and the skills, but then it's on you to go do it. So like you can't just check a box that you went to so-and-so's event and now you're the guy. Like you have to work relentlessly at this thing. And if you don't love it, by all means, like I get it, move on. But like nobody's handing it to you. And like even my situation, you guys get to see the end result of like a 17-year, 16-year, whatever it is, pro career and Team USA and whatever. But you don't know that I sucked freshman year. And I had to make a decision of like, all right, am I going to run at this thing? Or am I just going to be the kid that like was pretty athletic that Coach Petro gave a chance to and he didn't take the chance, right? Mm-hmm. And so like that summer between my freshman and sophomore year, I just turned into just a monster because I became obsessed with it. And when I say it, I mean all of it. I mean shooting, I mean film, I mean training, I mean eating the right way. Like I just became obsessed with it. And that's when I saw real improvement. So you can't just think it's going to happen. Like, and you can't even listen. I don't even want to say will yourself. I hear that sometimes. Like to your point earlier, shouldn't have to will yourself to it. Like you either love it or you don't, right? And if you love it, man, you got to go at it. And so that's typically what I try and have them leave with. And we teach them all kinds of skills, like even the ones I do out in LA that are like more involved and advanced in terms of like nutrition, cognitive experience, sports psychology, yoga, training, lifting, playing, learning how to run, like all these things. And I think what we're trying to beat into their heads is like, I think when you're marketing it from the standpoint of like, you get these 12 things that are incredible, right? Like that you need. Whereas in my head, that's true. But I'm more trying to make you understand these 12, you got to do them all. If you're trying to do this, if you want to be where we play on Saturdays, like you have to do all of this from now on. And if you don't, like you ain't making it. It's just a reality. That's just it. And that's what we try and get across.
No, it's beautifully said. I think the word obsession, even just hearing it come out of you and me thinking about it all the time, it gets a bad connotation because you're just like, oh, obsessive. You're over the top.
100%.
And my mentor challenges me, don't be well-rounded, be sharp-edged, right? We'll be respectful and be kind, right? Have all the manners off the field, but be sharp-edged. When I'm teaching the mental game, I describe it as simplex, and the fact that these things that we're about to talk about, they're so simple for you to understand. The complex part about it is doing it every single day. And like you said, these 12 things, don't do 11 of them, do all 12. That's the complicated thing part about this is you have to do this every single day. And what is a common thread with every peak performer that I talk to is everybody knows what to do, but not everybody does what they know. And I mean, every peak performer does what they know so consistently every day.
It's tough. It's tough, right?
Very tough.
Like it's not easy. It's not like that's, you know, I listened to Brody. I can't remember what podcast. It might have been yours, honestly. But he was making a comment around just like the older he gets, the more he enjoys like the fight because it gets harder to not like eat what you want. And like it gets really easy when you wake up and I hear Smith at 5 and then Brooke like 2 hours later to be like, oh, maybe today is not the day to go do anything. Like that's easy. Yeah. And so the older you get, the more responsibilities you have, like the grind becomes harder. And if you have that like obsession with what you're trying to do, it almost becomes even more fun because now you're like testing yourself on a daily basis, right? Like you're like, you know what the worst thing that happened to me, Mark, is this damn Peloton. Because I get to watch the leaderboard every day, and I'm like, oh hell no, like hell no, this guy's not today, not today. Like, and it's making me like I went to Jay yesterday, and I was like, yo, my legs are shot. And he's like, you have to stop that Peloton nonsense you're doing. I'm like, yo, but the leaderboard, I'm climbing that thing. I got to get to the top of it.
Man. Competitive fire for sure. And yeah, Brody talks about being on borrowed time and working against that time. It's awesome.
Yes.
So staying in that like little in that realm of traits that are necessary, like the obsession, the endless work ethic. There's so many traits that are agreed upon and seen as important. Grit, coachable, curiosity, dedication, for example. What are some of the qualities in teammates, athletes in general, or even on a broader scale, individuals in his or her endeavor that you think are so important in the pursuit?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So when you say pursuit, are you talking about like an accomplishment of a team or accomplishment of that individual?
Well, let's say either one for each, or that can help in
Yeah,
both arenas, like help themselves
yeah,
or also the
yep,
teams that they're in.
yep. So I think this will help in both arenas. So I think, in my opinion, when it comes to success, specifically just because we're talking athletes right now and sport, and then it translates to every other medium in my life, like from business to being a dad to a son to a brother. Be willing to play your role. Nothing more, nothing less. Like, do what you are supposed to do. And I think the most successful teams I've been on, and I can say the best team I've ever been on, and not talent wise, but just team, was my 2005 Hopkins team. And it
Hmm.
was because from the walk on straight through myself and Paul Rabel, you had 42, 46 guys that like knew their role, and that was your job. And we need like, and my job wasn't any more important than the walk-on's job, who wasn't any more important than the third string defenseman. Like everybody did their job. I tell this story all the time about a guy named Fuzzy Buns. He was a walk-on goalie at Hopkins, which is wild. Like, I mean, Coach Petro, you can imagine playing for Coach Petro as a walk-on goalie, right? Like just big guy screaming nonstop, getting after you. And so James was a right-handed goalie. And so that year, there were a lot of high-level left-handed goalies in D1. And so James came up to the captains. He was like, hey, all fall, winter, and then obviously in the spring, like, if you guys want me to play left-handed for you, I got you covered. Like, I'll play left-handed after practice for you to shoot. So James would just go stand in there left-handed and
Get
just get
out.
lit up, like hands, wrists broken, all kinds of stuff. Would cast it, jump back in. Like, never, ever complained. And then as a result, we get to the national championship game playing against a lefty goalie, and we are lighting this dude up. And nobody knows it behind the scenes. Like the reason we're shooting so well on a left-handed goalie, because our two guys, Jesse Schwartzman, Scott Smith, are right-handed. The reason we're shooting so well on a left-handed goalie, walk on, that literally never got to sniff the field, got in the goal for us every single day to let us shoot on him left-handed, banged up, right? And so like, was that a role that he'd want? Probably not, right? But was that the role that team needed to be successful? Yes. And he was willing to do it. And as a result, like if you talk to any member of that team, they're like, yo, give us a good story. Like, who was your favorite guy from that team? It'd be him, because he was willing to do whatever that team needed him to do for us to be successful. And I think for me, that's like a story I take with me everywhere. Every kid, like, look, man, everybody ain't gonna be a superstar. That's just a reality, right? Like, it's what it is. But you can be a pretty damn good team. Like you can be successful in the course of a team if you're willing to figure out, okay, what role does this team need me to do to be successful, and then just do it. That's, even if it's not the one you want, just do it, because I promise you the reward you'll feel from that is incredible. And I think for me, dude, as I've gotten older, I think James Mimoni Medwick, he's Fuzzy Buns. For me, like mentally, he's helped me. He doesn't even know this, right? Like I haven't talked to him in years, but that story and what his selflessness for our team has helped me so much, because I think aging as a high level player in any sport's tough, right? Because I've gone from the guy that like had the ball in my stick all the time to now you got to be off ball. You got to be off ball. You got to be ready, prepare. You're the second or third dodge. You're not the first. You just have to figure out your role, right? Like that's the reality. And so I think, yeah, I know it's a long-winded way of saying it, but I think if I had to pick one thing, it's like, play your role, man. Figure out what your role is and play it. That's it. Don't do more. Don't do less. Fill your role.
Dude, such a good response. And I mean, the one thing that if I could fix about what you were talking about is I think those individuals are not even willing; they're eager to do it. Right, like you're talking about, it's not just willing. Right, willing is this idea that you're just going to show up and whatever.
I have to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get to and I want to because I know I'm making Harry better and it's going to have an impact. The guy that comes to mind is Peter Spalding. For me, when I was a freshman at Yale, and I think if you look at cultures, right, and obviously I could talk Yale lacrosse for a long time, but I think I want to just talk about the back end of the depth chart, like you're talking about. Are they still finding ways to produce throughout the week, right? Because you can talk about empathy is important. You can talk about eagerness is important, but you have to talk about not just the first few guys or gals. You got to talk about all the way at the end.
Everybody, front to back, man.
You talked about their longevity and how it feels when you hop off the Peloton and maybe you're not ready to go and all that stuff. But the most important question that I always say to any individual, despite their age, that you can ask another individual is, what do you know now that you wish you knew then? So what do you know now that you wish you knew in 2005 going into the league?
Man. So like, just like most of us or most people you've talked to, like we're all self-motivated, right? So I think that one's like I don't want to say lazy answer, because that has a negative connotation. That's an easy answer. Like, you have to be self-motivated. You're not in school anymore. You don't have a strength coach being like that's obvious. But we're all pretty motivated dudes, and so we want to be on the field. So I'd say if I could have, I've always been great at prioritizing and managing my time, just because I am so family oriented. So I think I'm straight there. I think, you know what, dude? I think if I could go back, I think I would have put more energy and effort into taking care of myself mentally and work, like, physically, understanding that, like, working out doesn't necessarily mean lifting weights. Not that I was some big lifter, but I certainly didn't spend the time recovering, stretching, and doing the things that, like, allow you to play forever. Like, I think for me, I've been so fortunate in that I've played for as long as I have. I've had some injuries late in my career here that probably you could relate back to not taking care of, like, stretching and yoga and the things that you need for recovery, and rest, maybe back in the day, because I was the type dude that I'd, like, play a game, and then the next day I'd be, like, hooping for literally like 3 to 8, like, just running pickup games at Hopkins, just trying to get my game in. And, like, again, did that impact me heavily? Maybe, maybe not. But, like, I'd say, like, mentally understanding, like, what's going on. Do I need a break? Do I need to take a minute? Do I need to speak to somebody and understand kind of where I am? And then physically, like, understanding you need to take your foot off the gas at some point. It's just not possible.
It's such a good answer. And I mean, I think that's the only reason I've been able to take my game to the professional ranks and continue to improve is been the mental game and understanding it at a deeper level. Going along that thread and a little bit deeper, I'm regarding preparation and training. Is there anything that you think that is specifically overlooked or underestimated? Like, whether you talked about the rest, you talked about nutrition.
Yeah.
Is there a specific thing that you think's overlooked for the younger athlete?
Yeah, I do. No, I do. That's a good question. So I think what's overlooked, Mark, is the fact that, like, train for what you're supposed to be doing. Like, this whole, like, everybody do the same thing, it's just not a thing. Like, I don't need to be lifting like you lift, right? Like, you're cross-checking me and throwing me across the field. So I get why you would go strong upper body, but, like, I need to make sure my hips are ready to go. I need to make sure my core is ready to go. I need to make sure I can plant my foot in the ground and go the other way. So, like, I would say, like, focus more on, like, what do I have to do on this field to be successful? And then, like, research it. Or if you have the resources, get with a trainer and, like, be like, okay, let's watch this film. Here's what I need to do at a high level. What do I need to train to get to there? Right. Yeah. And I think universally, a lot of these kids, like, just everybody's going out and doing the same stuff. And it's like, dog, we don't have to do the same stuff on the field. So, like, train for what you got to do. Like, there's a reason you go to a football practice and you see a quarterback, like, stepping through things, like dodging a broom and throwing a ball. Right. And the linemen are over there pushing a thing because, like, they got to do 2 different things on the field. So that's what they're training. So I think for our specific type of, like, lacrosse kid, like, figure out what you're supposed to do to be successful and then train for that.
I love that. I mean, from the conversation, it does to a T. From the conversation of filling a role, be eager to fill a role, train sport specific, and then you talking about how what we're talking about in sport can be taken to any medium. From a macro level, I think if you are done trying to live a cookie cutter version of somebody else's life, you could be more successful, because that's not you from a personality standpoint. It's not what you love. It's not your passion, and all that. I want to get to not a darker moment, but kind of, has there ever been a time where you ever fell out of love with the sport and found another reason to keep playing? Or what was your biggest hurdle or downfall during your long career?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think to your point earlier, man, like, it always, I shouldn't say always, most times it comes from some sort of loss, right? Like, that's just what, like, swings things. So I've had, like, a couple moments in my career where, like, a big loss or something that's happened has like triggered me to, turn it back on again. So, like, my one would be, and we'll go top to back. So, like, there's one, my junior year in college, we lost in the Final Four to Syracuse. And I felt like that was the first time in my career that I felt like I was supposed to be one of the leaders of that team, and I could have done more. And it wasn't like more on the field, because I think I played fine. I had a couple goals and some assists, whatever. So like that part was fine. But like it was very obvious to me personally, like I should have said something. I should have done more. Like we were there. We were the number one team again and lost again. And that was the first time. Like we left. Me and Benson got in the car. We drove to the beach, and I was just sitting there during the national championship on Monday watching it. It's like, yo, I think this one might have been on me. Like it might have been my fault. So I sent an email out to our team, included the freshmen, and it was like, yo, from here on out, I've got you. Like, I swear to you, that will never happen again. To you seniors, I am so sorry that I let that happen. I completely get everything you've said to me. I get that I need to be more vocal. Like that one was on me. I swear to you, it will not happen next year. There's just no shot. And that had nothing to do with that email, but like we went undefeated, won a championship. It just like came together. And so that happened. And that's where mentally, that's when like I stepped into I think that was when I became a real leader more so. I mean, you've probably been this your whole life too. Like if you're one of the better players on the team, you're like the lead by example guy, right? Like, but I think that moment where I sent that email and then came back and was a captain, and like now I gotta step up because I sent that email. Like that's when I became a leader. Jeez. And like the switch actually flipped. And then professionally, it was actually my wife. I tore my quad, and this was 2012. We're about to I'm playing in LXM. I'm out of the MLL at the moment, playing LXM that we've started, and I tear my quad. But now it's time for U.S. tryouts, and I see that like Coach Petro's the coach, Tambroni's the coach. Like, you know, I'm like, oh my God, I can't sit this. Like, I gotta figure this out. So I go to the first tryout, have it sleeved, made some plays, but like I wasn't me. Like I couldn't push, right? But this was just the initial tryout. This wasn't like the real one. So like I make it through to the 50, and so the next thing's to the next fall. So I'm rehabbing all summer, trying to get my quad back. Like it's coming back. And then there was one day after training up in LA, and like I just felt like I didn't have it. I was like, so I get home, sitting down with my wife, and she's like, "How you doing?" I'm like, "Mary, I think I don't think I'm done, but like I can't play for Team USA anymore. Like I don't have it. I can't move on this quad." And she was like, "Okay." Sits in silence at dinner. I go in the room, sit in the back room. She comes in, and I know you haven't met her before. My wife is like very what would you say? Like very girly and like not into sports. So like she's not into it. Like when I first met her, dude, she heard I played lacrosse. She assumed it was at the local YMCA. Like she didn't get that like I was good. It's a whole mess of itself. The whole story is a mess. But so I'm sitting in the bedroom. I was like staring out the window. She comes in. She goes, "Hey, I'm gonna go out, but just really quickly, stop feeling sorry for yourself. Remember who you are. You're one of the best to do this. Figure it out and go back to training tomorrow. I'll see you when I get back." And she left, and I was like, shit. She never says anything about sports or mentally like where I am. And it literally took her saying that for me to be like, all right, get yourself back together, like get back to square one and just go at this thing. And my best year professionally was that year, like the following year, 2014. I was statistically, not that I'm a stats guy, never have been, never will be, but statistically it was my best year. I made Team USA, and I was like, that was the prime of my lacrosse career in terms of my like physical prime, body wise, and like production wise. And it all came from like feeling like it was over. Like I remember that, dude. I was doing like, you know, the lateral jumps where you like jump this way and explode, and like I just could not move, and it was all like, and it might have been mental more so than even the quad, because that's what Mike, Mike for Evolution PT, that's what I was working with at the time.
Yeah.
In LA, he was like, "Dude, your quad's good." I was like, "Are you sure, man? I'm not moving." And so it's probably up here. But it took my wife snapping at me for me to just reset and then just go chase it. And so my biggest successes in the sport have always come after something has happened. Injury, loss. You know, look, man, just like you, I've lost big games. Probably lost more big games than I've won in the course of my whole career. You know, if you go back to the younger days. but that's a part of it. You grow from it. You get better. You get stronger. You stay motivated. I've never been like a revenge guy. Like this summer, when we're going back at it, like with the whip snakes. My goal is that they took a championship from us.
Right.
Like we lost a game. It sucked, especially
Right.
how it happened because we thought we were going to win.
Yeah.
Like we were this close.
Definitely.
But like, I'm going to reset. I'm going to get better. I'm going to watch a film and I'm going to chase it again because that's what we do. I'm not going to hold a bunch of anger and regret and hatred in my heart. I gave a talk, a quick quote to the PLL front office on Tuesday during our meeting. I was talking about, and I'm sorry to digress here, but I was talking about, I noticed myself last week with everything going on with George Floyd, Anthony Cooper. I noticed myself last week transitioning from the normal personality I have to angry, like filled with hate. Like I felt it happening last Friday and Saturday. And it was just because of everything going on. And I put my son down and fell asleep like immediately afterwards, like 7:30 at night. And then woke up the next morning at like 8. And so I said to my wife, like, that was as tired as I have ever been. Like I was exhausted. And it was because for the first time, like physically I've been tired before. But if you fill yourself with like hate and anger, like it is exhausting. Like it is absolutely exhausting. And I was so tired that like I needed to reset and be like, okay, as frustrated as I am with this situation, like hatred and anger obviously isn't helping me, because if I'm like that, like how I read tweets is going to be bad. How I talk to my kids is going to be bad. How I listen to my wife is going to be bad. How I'm going about my day is going to be bad. That's not helpful for anything I'm trying to do. So like I had to reset that. And I think that's like just a microcosm of how I feel about losing games. Like, sure, it's motivating, man, but like, I'm not going to let that eat at me. I've got a incredible wife and 2 great kids. Like, that's not going to consume me. But when I was younger, I'm sure similar to a lot of athletes, like that shit, a loss, like a championship, that might be like 5 months of misery.
Oh, sure.
Just like anger and like, it just changes you. So I think it probably comes with age. And I know it's a long-winded answer to our question, but like, I've learned to let that stuff go. It's what it is. It's a loss. You move on, you get stronger, and you come back better.
Kyle, you gave me so much there. I mean, thank you first for sharing all those stories, because facts, stories stick, and you gave me a lot to work with there. There's a guy named Dr. Sapolsky who wrote a book called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, and it's because they can go from getting attacked to evading and not being the one that's eating to going back to mating and eating right away, right? Is there any fear that lingers on there? No. They're just done being attacked and they're back to doing what they're doing. And can we as athletes or people be more like that, right? Relationship breakup, a loss, any type of it takes you for months. Like
I can't lose that. Hold on. Pause yourself. I can't lose that one. What did you just say, zebra? I'm texting myself that. What did you say? Zebra. I can't.
Why zebras don't get ulcers, and it's because they're able, and they don't let it dwell, right? They don't stress out about something that just happened. They were this close to getting eaten, and it was their buddy, but they're moving on back to eating or mating, right? So you gave me so much to work with. I do want to acknowledge those two stories that you gave, because you had a serious loss with a torn quad. You had a serious loss where you felt like you left people down. There's been times where I finish a game and I said, you should have said something at halftime, Mark. You should have said something. You're extroverted. You're good at communicating a message. You should have said something right then and there. And you know where this whole story comes back is this word bounce back ability, either from the long term or inside that one game, right, where you wish you said more your junior year, right? Can you bounce back and not let it linger into days, months, and years and get back to the work? 100%. I mean, Brody always talks 100%. About that. Get back to the work. On the San Diego Seals, we had a character coach who was a Navy SEAL for 2 years, and him and I were going back about leadership, and he goes, if you're not doing anything and you're dwelling, you're getting caught up in the stream downstream. And he goes, I am not okay with that. Swim upstream. I listened to your Unbuckled podcast with Paul, and you talked about, especially right now, if you're on the fence, you're choosing a side. You can't be okay with that. You must swim upstream. You must do something about it. So the whole word bounce back ability is so powerful in the fact that it's this simple little thing that you do where you don't allow all this frustration to be the lens in which you look at your wife, your kids, your sport, your craft, your everything. Because, and I'll finish it by saying this, there was a pregame speech that Patty Merrill with the San Diego Seals gave us, and he said, are you a candle or are you a wildfire? Because the adversity it adds to a wildfire or it blows a candle out. So you were exhausted and you went to bed right away because you were so like a candle that day that you were just blown out by all the adversity you were facing, rather than using it like a wildfire uses oxygen to extend and be more of a light for other people and everything. So that was awesome, man.
100%.
That was
100%.
awesome. So I've asked you a lot of stories about like what has changed over time, and the word that like whenever you're reading a book or a story, it has a through line, right, or a connecting theme within the pages or the chapters. But let's talk about your years. What has stayed the same about young Kyle Harrison all the way to now?
Yeah. One of the things I'm the most proud of, man, is that I have played lacrosse my way. From the beginning, right? And like I got, there were people, and I've like gotten to a point where I don't read much of anything anymore. But like early in my career, I didn't score enough, or I didn't get enough assists, or I didn't do this, or I didn't do that, or I'm never going to be good enough to like sustain it. And like my game hasn't changed in 20 years. Like I've done the same thing. Now, have there been years that are better than others? Sure. And have I had to evolve, as I talked about earlier, in terms of like my role within a team? Of course, that's like a part of aging as an athlete. But like in terms of my style of play that like may or may not have worked for the kid coming from friends, like I've done it my way this entire time. And that's probably the thing I'm the most proud of.
We saw the triple XL sweatpants.
Yeah, man. I guess my clothes have gotten tighter.
So you're let's go on that evolution for a second. You're adapting.
Yeah.
What to this day do you use in terms of inspiration, information, quotes, mantras, ideas that you refer back to keep your edge, even to this day?
Yeah, no, man. So I think to Brody's point, like it's borrowed time now, right? We're both like getting old. And so like you learn to appreciate everything. And like I meant what I said earlier, like I'll watch a game and watch someone do something. And like, oh, that makes a ton of, like, why haven't I been doing that? Like I can tell you one play, like against the what was it? I think it was the Archers in the playoffs. Like I had watched them play, and I watched how they like cover an umbrella up top. And like you've played against me, I have a tendency to just like, I'll either drift and then like just want to dance, or like I'll drift and not be in a shooting spot. So like I watched them play on like an arc, and I was like, oh, so they like kind of back in a little bit. So I don't need to like get way above the 2-point line and dance. I'm just going to hang out like at the 2-point line. So when I get it, I can shoot it. And the first play of the game, he bangs me one. I step in from 12. I'm like, what the hell have I been doing? Like I've been running around for the past 6 weeks trying to figure this out. So like, I think what drives me now, man, is like, and this is going to come across different than it's supposed to, but I'll say it anyway. Like, the only person I'm proving things to at this point is myself.
Love it.
Like, I am trying to prove, like, I can do this. I can evolve. I can figure out a way to still be effective. I can adapt. I can learn a new skill. I can play off ball. Like the guy that just used to dance nonstop, which is my game. Like I can now figure out how to go to the crease and fade when somebody, like I can evolve my game. And so like that's where I am mentally, man. Be productive, be a leader, and do whatever I can to help our team win and bring young guys along. But from the playing perspective, like the edge, like I'm sure no different from you or any other athlete, like I don't think that'll ever go anywhere. I just don't need to, I don't know. Like I don't need to be motivated from like looking at something or feeling something, or like it's just there.
It's just there. It's all right. It's just burning, and it's just about where you want to channel it for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Book called 12 Rules for Life. Jordan B. Peterson. The one that sticks out with me all the time, probably because it's the hardest to do, is compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. And you still have a way to do that while still learning, right? And whether it's sport or in life, right? The real thing, you still learn and you adapt and you evolve. And I love that. And then turning the page 3 to 5 years from now, Kyle, where are you? What are you up to?
Okay, so 3 to 5, I'm not
Too
running around
much.
anymore. I can commit to you that I will not be getting cross-checked by you in 3
But
to
you'll be
5
number
years.
one on Peloton, probably. Probably.
Yeah, I will get to that number one spot if it's the last thing I do. No, man, like in terms of my playing career, like, look, had COVID not happened, like maybe this would have been the last year, right? It might have been, but I think with COVID, I personally don't want to have my final season be a 2-week tournament, right? So I'll probably play one more, um, and then it'll be time, unless I guess I'll think about it as we get there. But like I wouldn't imagine playing more than that. And then looking at 3 to 5 years, man, like I've been so fortunate, Mark, in that a lot of these organizations and businesses I'm a part of, like I have ownership in them and I have a bigger role. So like I had imagined that like when I'm done playing, like I'll probably be doing a lot of the same stuff I'm still currently doing, just not getting cross-checked on the weekend from dudes like you. Like I'll just have more time
Perfect.
to yeah, and so I think I'm happy from that perspective, man. I've been so lucky, and I know it. I know that like I came out of school at the right time. I'm a black player in a white sport, and at that moment, there were manufacturers looking to sponsor people and like go for it. And so I got to come out, sign a contract with Nike, sign a contract with STX, release my own equipment line, like build these little businesses here and there. And so I've been so fortunate, and I just want to continue giving back to the sport, growing the sport. And then with the PLO, man, like I think we've gotten this thing to a point, and you're so much younger than me, so maybe pro lacrosse was aspirational for you, but I think when I was younger, like it didn't exist. So there was no like aspiration of like I want to chase that, because I think for me it was basketball and soccer. I wanted to chase those because there wasn't a pro lacrosse thing. So I think with the PLL and what we're doing, man, we're just trying to make this thing like aspirational, that you can graduate college, come out, and you can earn a real living playing. Like this is real now. Like this isn't, I mean, obviously you can have a bunch of balls in the air in terms of what you're doing professionally and be an entrepreneur, but like if you want to chase pro lacrosse, you can play indoor and outdoor and run your business and like be fine, like make a good living. And I think that's what excites me the most. Like I think I say this to Paul all the time, and I said it 2 years ago as we were rolling this thing out, is I think we've seen some incredible lacrosse players. We have, right? Like the past 20 years, 30 years even, if you want to go back to Gary and Paul and the best of all time. But like we have seen some ridiculous professional lacrosse players. No argument. In my opinion, at the pro level, we haven't seen the best yet, because these guys are just turning into full time. So we haven't seen what like the prime 27-year-old that has nothing else to do but watch film, lift, and shoot balls. We haven't seen what that looks like yet. Like, and even now, like we're almost there. But I feel like we're in the next 5 to 10. We're just going to see some stuff on the field that we didn't think was possible. Absurd. Because we have like ages 24 to 30. It's like in the prime of your physical body. We haven't had that guy be a full-time lacrosse. Like think about our greats, man. We haven't had it, right? Like I think about Jay Jalbert all the time and AJ Hogan. I'm like, those guys left at 29. Like they could have. What is AJ Hogan or Jay Jalbert that is just lifting, watching film, and shooting balls all day look like at 29? Like it would have been out of control. Look what they looked like without doing.
Out of control.
Look what they look like without dedicating full time to it. They were still the best in the world. So like, I'm excited for that.
Yeah,
really excited for that.
I've definitely felt a change in going to complete devotion in my life. So I can only imagine what it'll look like when you don't even have to not waste, but spend your chapter in a different way. So I got two more things for you. As I mentioned in the introduction and early on in this talk, I'm grateful for your leadership, because you've been great for the PLL and for the sport of lacrosse, but also using your platform, especially during these trying times, for positive change during Black Lives Matter, diversity, inclusion, on paving the way. Is there any message you'd like to share that could help listeners join that journey towards positive, meaningful change?
Yeah, man. I think, for listeners that don't necessarily understand where Black Lives Matter is coming from, right? Or what this movement is, because we hope it's a movement, not a moment, right? Like I know something happened last week, so we don't want this to just be a moment of people being interested. We want this to be a movement for as long as it takes to fix. I would encourage anybody that doesn't fully understand it, do your research. And get a better understanding of racism and the history of racism in America. And I think once you do that, it may give more insight and clarity into why Black people feel the way they do.
Mm.
You know, I think so. I think it starts there because you know, Mark, I try. I say this all the time, especially now. Maybe I'm just trying to pump myself up, but I try to believe most people are good. I'm trying to give people the benefit of the doubt. Like, so the people that don't see eye to eye with me or the Black Lives Matter movement, whatever, I try to give them the benefit of the doubt and understand, like, you're not a bad person. I'm not positive you understand the history of racism in this country. And once you do, like, maybe you'll understand a little better of why we feel the way we feel.
Oh, yeah.
And it's that simple, right? Like I've transitioned again since last weekend of like my just anger. I've transitioned to just like, let's try and understand each other so I can understand where you're coming from and not understanding it. And I think if you read about it, you'll 100% understand where I'm coming from because, you know, it wasn't that long ago that it happened, right? Like, I think I say this recently a lot. My dad, when this happened, dude, he was, we did an interview together. Like, I watched him throughout the interview go through this just wide array of emotions, like screaming, crying, normal. Like, it was just like all over the map. And after the call, I was sitting here thinking, I was like, I finally put my finger on it, which wasn't difficult, but it's like, my dad is 74, 73. So think about when he was a kid and what he watched happen to Black people in this country. That video was like spot on. It was like in line with what he's watched for 70 plus years now, right? So in his head, when we talk about progress, like in his head and people of that generation, they're like, nothing's changed. Like, this is the same thing I've watched for 70 plus years now. And that's why it impacted him so deeply. And so, again, long-winded way of saying it, but like, I'd encourage people, look, we're allowed to disagree. We're Americans. Like, we're allowed to have opinions. Like, that is what it is. I would encourage you to be empathetic, compassionate, have an open heart, open mind, assume the best in people. And lastly, most importantly, do your research, because I think once you do your research, at least you can go into the discussion armed and have an understanding of like, oh, I get why Black people in this country might feel the way they do.
Absolutely. And amen to the difference between a moment and a movement. What came back is the idea that we're talking about sport, and at your camp, is something that you try to deliver is that it takes work. And it's the same thing with this conversation, that it takes work, right? It's not
100%.
enough to just do a few of the 12 things at this camp. You have to do all of them and work on them, right? And I ask everybody this. Lastly, life is a strategy game. It's not a talent game, and it's not about natural ability. You can learn from the right coaches and work at it. It doesn't matter if we're talking about a nation, right, or a team or an individial, but I just want your 100%. Take on it. As a peak performer yourself, how do you define greatness?
How do I define greatness? So, look, I could take this in so many different directions. I think, for me at least, it's like multi-layered. You find something you love, right? Like, whatever that is. And then you become the best version of yourself doing it. And so for me, you know, the sport has been great to me, but it's made me the man I want to be, right? Like, it's made me the father, the husband, the son that I want to be. And so I think that's it. You find what you love, you hold on to it, and then you become the best version of yourself in it.
Awesome, man. And I'm taking it back. Thank you for always playing the game your way, yet still learning. And a perfect answer in terms of what define greatness. I wrote it all down, and I couldn't agree more with you. I'm smiling and nodding my head. But Kyle, it's been awesome getting to know you, man. I can't wait to see our friendship evolve, and I appreciate you taking the time to come on.
You know it, man. Always here, man. I've you know, you're a dude. I remember. I obviously didn't get to know you until last year, but I remember we played you all in the what was it, in the rain somewhere, and like I was in a shooting slump all damn last year, and I finally get one on the side, like, to win the game. I'm like, oh my God, this is it. I am going to break out of this shooting slump, and your crazy ass comes jumping in front of my shot and blocks that thing. And then, you know, I think the best part about what you do, man, is when you followed up with the article. I want to say it was postseason, or like after the season, when you followed up explaining why you are the way you are. I think it was really impactful, because what would happen with how you play is ultimately when you just see the video, you have people being like, oh my gosh, we're going to have kids all over the country jumping in front of shots. But in actuality, one, that's not real. Take that elsewhere. But two, and more importantly, watch what that means. What I see is a dude willing to sacrifice whatever he has to for his teammates, right? Now you're not putting yourself in a position to get hurt. Like, in fact, you get hit and you stand back up and you run the other way. In fact, with the one you blocked on me, I'm pretty sure you grabbed the ball and ran the other way. Just time ran out. Like, it was a mess. But like, from a distance, man, I've been a fan for a while, and getting to watch it up close was cool last summer.
Means the world, Kyle. Thanks again, man.
You got it, bro. See ya.